You have 30 minutes to pack. Juliet Park did not look up from the stove. The steam from the pot curled around her face, thick, warm, carrying the smell of her mother's pepper soup, and she stirred slowly, deliberately, like she hadn't heard the three men standing in her kitchen doorway at all. "Miss Park." The voice was closer now, colder. "I said, I heard you." She set the wooden spoon down, turned, and faced the man in the expensive suit, the one who wasn't speaking, the one standing at the back, the one watching her with eyes that gave away absolutely nothing. He was younger than she expected, not the gray-haired monster her father had described over the phone in a voice cracked with fear. He was maybe 30, sharp jaw, dark coat, and he was looking at her the way people look at furniture they haven't decided yet whether to keep or throw away. "Your father owes my employer a considerable sum," the suit man said. He held up a folder. "We've come to settle the matter." "My father," Juliet said carefully, "is not here." "We know." She looked past him, past all three of them, toward the back door of the restaurant kitchen. The restaurant that still smelled like her mother, even though Grace Park had been dead for 4 years. The restaurant that her father, Park Sung-jin, had run into the ground one bad season at a time, one medical bill at a time, one desperate decision at a time. "How much?" she asked. The suit man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "More than this kitchen is worth." Behind him, the quiet one. The one in the dark coat. He hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, but his eyes had traveled from her face to the stove, to the pot, to the small tray of pastries cooling on the counter beside it. She'd made them that morning, out of habit, out of grief. Chin, the Nigerian kind her mother used to fry every Sunday, but twisted with Korean technique, rolled thin, glazed with honey and sesame, and just a whisper of palm sugar. A fusion nobody had asked for. A recipe that existed only because Juliet Park was two things at once and had stopped apologizing for it. The quiet one, the one who was clearly in charge, stepped forward without warning. He picked up one of the chin pieces. Or he looked at it for a moment that stretched too long. Then he ate it. Juliet watched his face. She always watched people's faces when they ate her food. It was a reflex, a habit her mother had built into her. "Watch their eyes, Ada. That's where the truth lives." His face did something she didn't expect. It cracked, just barely, just for half a second. Something that might have been shock, or might have been pain, or might have been something far older than either. And then it was gone, sealed back, controlled. He looked at her. "Your name," he said. His voice was quiet, quiet the way a held breath is quiet. "Juliet Park." "Who taught you to make this?" She held his gaze. "My mother." Something moved behind his eyes. He put the rest of the chin down. "Pack," he said. 30 minutes. "I'm not going anywhere." "Your father's debt." He reached into his coat, pulled out a single sheet of paper and laid it on the counter beside the tray. "I'll double it tonight if you refuse." Juliet looked at the paper. I looked at the number on it, felt the floor tilt slightly beneath her feet. She looked back at him. He had already turned away. 30 minutes, Miss Park," he said without looking back. "Don't make me come find you." If you're watching this right now, you already feel it. That tightness in your chest, that pull. Welcome to Afro-Korean Stories TV, where culture bleeds into emotion and every story leaves a mark. If this is your first time here, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Hit subscribe, drop a comment below telling us what you felt in that first scene, and please, like this video. It helps more people find stories that actually matter. Now, let's go back, because it gets so much deeper from here. Her name was Seo Jae-won. That was what Choi Min told her in the car, not because he was being kind, but because he believed in the efficiency of information. He sat in the front seat, eyes forward, and said it like a weather report. "His name is Seo Jae-won." He is the acting head of Seo Industries. You will address him as Mr. Seo or not at all. What does he want with a chef? Juliet asked. Choi Min didn't answer. She looked out the window at Seoul moving past. The Han River catching the late evening light, the bridges strung with lamps, and the city going about its ordinary business, while she sat in the back of a black car with a bag packed in 28 minutes, and her mother's recipe book pressed against her ribs like a shield. She hadn't called her father yet. She didn't know what she would say. I'm going. I don't have a choice. Please, for once in your life, don't make a decision that makes things worse. Her phone buzzed. Zara. She stared at the screen. Zara Delamini, her best friend since university. Called from Johannesburg at 9 in the evening, Seoul time, which meant it was 3 in the afternoon there, which meant Zara was bored and curious and absolutely did not know what was happening. Juliet let it ring. The mansion, if that was even the right word for it, sat on the northern edge of the city, behind walls and trees and a gate that opened without anyone touching it. It was large the way silence is large. Empty feeling even though there were staff moving through it. Or lights on in every room, a kind of institutional precision to everything that made Juliet feel immediately that warmth had never been a priority here. She was shown to a room. Clean, cold, adequate. A window that looked out over a garden that was probably beautiful in spring and was now just dark shapes and bare branches. She sat on the edge of the bed. I opened her mother's recipe book. Ran her thumb along the handwriting, Grace Park's handwriting, round and hurried. Yes, a mix of Yoruba annotations and Korean translations her father had added in the margins years ago, when they were still the kind of couple who did things like that together. There was a knock on the door. She closed the book. Yes. The door opened. It was not Seo Jae-won. It was a woman in house staff uniform, her face professionally blank, carrying a tray. Mr. Seo requires breakfast at 7, the woman said. The kitchen is downstairs. You will have full access. And a list of his dietary restrictions is on the tray. She set it down and left before Juliet could respond. Juliet looked at the tray. A glass of water. A small card with a short list. And a single sentence at the bottom, handwritten in sharp, angular script. Make whatever you want, as long as I can taste it. She read it twice. Then she read it a third time. As long as I can taste it. She thought about his face when he'd eaten the chin-chin, that half-second crack. It was that look that came and went so fast she almost doubted she'd seen it. She picked up the card. Hold it. Something was wrong with Seo Jae-won. Something beyond money and power, and the particular coldness of men who had been given too much of both too young. She just didn't know yet what it was. She was in the kitchen by 5:30 the next morning. It was a good kitchen, professional grade, better equipped than the restaurant had ever been. Stocked with ingredients that told her whoever managed the household had done their research. There were Nigerian spices she hadn't expected to find, ground crayfish, uziza leaves, dried Ada cocoyam, sitting alongside Korean pantry staples, doenjang, gochugaru, perilla oil. She ran her fingers along the jars slowly, reading labels, taking inventory. Someone had prepared for her specifically. Someone had known what she would need. She didn't know how to feel about that. And she stood in the middle of the kitchen for a long time, just breathing it in, just letting the space settle around her the way you let a new kitchen settle, learning its rhythms, its smells, the particular quality of silence it kept when no one was moving. Then she started to cook. She made jollof rice, but not the standard kind. She bloomed the tomatoes low and slow the way her mother had taught her, let them caramelize until they were almost sweet, or until the whole kitchen filled with that deep, slightly smoky smell that meant you'd done it right. Then she added gochujang paste, just enough, folding it in with a wooden spoon in slow circles. The color shifted, deeper, more complex. She made a broth from dried anchovies and stockfish together, Korean and Nigerian technique married in the same pot, the way she had always cooked, the way she could not help cooking. And the way her mother had called the beautiful argument, two traditions fighting for the same bowl, neither one winning, both transformed. She thought about her mother while she cooked. She always did. Grace Park had learned to cook Nigerian food from her mother and Korean food from her husband, and she had refused to keep them separate. She had brought them together with the confidence of someone who believed that love didn't ask you to choose. That identity didn't require borders, but that you could be two things at once and both of them completely. Juliet had inherited that. It was the most important thing she'd inherited. More than the recipe book, more than the restaurant, more than the debt. She plated the jollof rice simply. No garnish, she didn't mean. Seo Jae-won appeared in the kitchen doorway at exactly 7 o'clock. He was already dressed, dark shirt, no tie. His eyes moved around the kitchen before they landed on her. A professional habit, she realized. Taking in the space before the person. She filed that away. He looked at her across the kitchen without greeting her, without any of the social niceties that people use to make interactions feel less like what they are. She was beginning to understand this about him. It wasn't rude. It was something else. A man who had spent so long navigating rooms full of people who wanted things from him that he had learned to conserve himself, to give only what was necessary. She put the plate on the island counter without comment. He sat down. I looked at it, picked up the spoon. He ate. She watched his face from the other side of the kitchen, pretending to clean something she had already cleaned. She was good at this, watching without appearing to watch. Her mother had taught her that too. People show you the truth when they think you're not looking, Ada. That's when the face relaxes. She watched the way his jaw moved, and the way his eyes went slightly unfocused, not blank, but inward, like he was chasing something. Like the taste of it was something he was trying to catch and hold. He finished half the plate, set the spoon down, sat for a moment in a silence that felt different from his usual silence, less controlled, more lost. Like a man standing in a house he thought was empty, who has just heard someone else breathing. And then, "You used gochujang?" "Yes, in jollof rice." "My mother's adaptation." She kept her voice even. "She believed every cuisine is improved by meeting another one." He looked at the plate. Something crossed his face that she couldn't name. Then, "She was right." He stood, picked up his jacket from the back of the chair. Left. No thank you. No acknowledgement. Just that. She was right. And then the sound of his footsteps down the corridor and a door closing somewhere in the house. Juliet let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She looked down at her hands. They were shaking slightly. Not from fear, exactly. From something more complicated than fear. She picked up the half-finished plate and set it in the sink. Stood there for a moment with the water running cold over her wrists, letting herself feel it, in the strangeness of this, the grief that lived in the act of cooking her mother's food for a stranger, the way the kitchen had felt, just for a moment like something familiar. Make whatever you want, as long as I can taste it. She was beginning to understand what that meant, and it made something inside her ache in a way she hadn't expected. Not pity, not sympathy exactly, something more like recognition, like meeting a person whose wound rhymes with your own. Days passed, and then a week. She cooked twice a day, breakfast and dinner. He always ate. He never finished. He never thanked her. And every morning he appeared in that doorway at exactly 7 and sat and ate with the focused, almost desperate concentration of a man trying to hold on to something. She started noticing the other things, the way he stood in the kitchen doorway sometimes in the evenings, not coming in, just watching her cook. The first time it happened, she almost said something, and chose not to. She moved around the kitchen the way she always moved, dancing slightly to whatever was playing through the Bluetooth speaker she had brought from home, talking to herself in the mix of Yoruba and Korean and English that had been her private language since childhood, narrating the cooking the way her mother had, and then we add the uziza, and you can't rush uziza. It tells you when it's ready. You have to listen. She wasn't performing. She'd forgotten he was there, almost. And the second time he stood in the doorway, he stayed longer. The third time, she heard him exhale, just slightly. The way people exhale when something they forgot was tight suddenly loosens. She noticed the way his staff looked at him, not with love, with fear dressed as respect, the particular careful stillness of people who have learned that the wrong expression at the wrong moment costs something. Yet she thought about what it would be like to move through a house full of people who were afraid of you, to eat alone in rooms that fell quiet when you entered, to have so much power that nobody told you the truth. She noticed the scar along his left hand, thin, surgical, running from his wrist to the base of his index finger. She didn't ask about it, but she looked at it every morning when he picked up the spoon. She noticed that he never ate with anyone else. One evening, 11 days in, she made egusi soup, real egusi, ground melon seeds fried in palm oil until they crumbled perfectly, leafy greens, smoked fish, stockfish, but she finished it with a drizzle of sesame oil and a scattering of toasted sesame seeds. Korean in its restraint, Nigerian in its soul. Her mother's dish, made through her own hands, carried across an ocean and a marriage, and 4 years of grief, and 14 hours on a plane, and 3 weeks in a mansion that had started to feel, terrifyingly, like a place she was beginning to know. She put the bowl in front of him. He ate a spoonful, stopped. She watched from the stove, back half-turned. He ate another. He looked up at her. And for a moment, just a moment, the wall was completely down. She saw it. She saw him, whatever was underneath the control and the cold and the authority. She saw it, raw and blinking, like something that had been in the dark a long time, and wasn't sure if this was really light. "What is this?" he asked. His voice was rougher than usual, rougher than she'd ever heard it. "Egusi soup, my mother's recipe." He looked back down at the bowl. "I can taste it," he said quietly, almost to himself, like an admission, like something he hadn't meant to say out loud. "I can actually taste it." She stood very still. "What do you mean?" He looked up, realized he'd said it out loud. His face closed again instantly, at the controls snapping back into place like a door slamming, and fast and practiced and slightly desperate, the way you only learn to close things that fast if they've been forced open before. "Nothing," he said. "Mr. SEO. That will be all for tonight, Miss Park." She wanted to push. She measured it. "I decided tonight wasn't the right night." She went back to the kitchen, turned off the music, and stood in the silence, thinking about what he'd said, the way he'd said it, the crack in his voice, the word actually, which implied a before, a time before actually tasting it. That was the opposite of that. I can actually taste it, like he couldn't before, like something had been stolen. She called Zara that night. "You're still there?" Zara said before hello. "I'm still here." "Juliet." The pause was heavy. "I have looked up to this man, COJ1. I have gone deep into the internet. And the things I have found, I know who he is." "Then why?" "My father's debt, Zara. That is not why, and you know it." Zara's voice was direct but not unkind. She had always been able to see through Juliet's practical explanations to the thing underneath. "What is actually happening there?" Juliet sat on the edge of her bed. I looked out the window. The garden was still dark in shape and bare branches. But she'd noticed a few things starting to come through. Early green at the edges of the beds. Spring decided to try. Something happened to him, she said carefully. Something that took something from him, and I don't understand it yet. She paused. But I'm starting to think that's why I'm here. Not just the debt. Zara was quiet for a moment. Jules, be careful what you start to feel in that house. Places like that. They get inside you. The gold starts looking normal, but the cold starts feeling safe. I know. Do you? Juliet looked at her hands. I'm trying to. Every night, Zara said. Call me every night. Every night, Juliet agreed. She hung up. I looked at her mother's recipe book sitting on the nightstand. Sat for a long time in the quiet of the expensive room that she was almost getting used to sleeping in. Outside, Soul breathed and moved and went about its business. And somewhere in this house, down a corridor and behind a door she had never knocked on, a man who couldn't taste his food sat alone with whatever he was carrying, in the dark. She understood that more than she wanted to. She opened the recipe book, found the page for pepper soup, read it, put it down, turn off the light. It was the photograph that changed everything. 3 weeks in. Yeah, she was looking for extra storage in the pantry. The kitchen was so well stocked it was hard to find space for the dried uziza leaves she'd brought from the restaurant. And she opened a door she thought was a cabinet. It was a small room, a utility room mostly. Shelving, a filing cabinet, a corkboard on the wall, and on the corkboard, photographs. Security photos, she realized, surveillance images printed in black and white, and pinned with the organized precision of someone building a case or a memory. She would have looked away, would have backed out quietly, except that her eye caught on one image in the lower right corner. A woman, standing outside a restaurant, laughing at something off camera. A woman with Grace Park's face. Not exactly Grace Park's face. Not her mother. Her mother was dead. She knew that she had buried her. And she had stood in the rain at Yonsei University Medical Center and signed the paperwork with hands that couldn't stop shaking, but close. The same wide-set eyes. The same way of laughing with her whole body. The same... She took the photograph off the board. I turned it over. There was a date on the back, a location, and a name that was not Grace Park. A name she didn't recognize. She put it back, exactly as she found it. Closed the door. I walked back into the kitchen. I gripped the edge of the counter. Her heart was going too fast. Who was that woman? Why was she on his board? What does it mean that she looked like... She heard footsteps. She turned around, started moving. I opened the refrigerator, pulled out vegetables like she'd been standing there all along. SEO Jae-won walked into the kitchen. Stopped. "You're cooking," he said. It wasn't a question. "Prep for tomorrow's breakfast," she said. Her voice was steady, and she was proud of how steady it was. He watched her for a moment, those eyes, reading her the way they always did, measuring something she couldn't name. "You found the room," he said. She set the vegetables down. I turned to face him. "I wasn't looking for it." "I know." He leaned against the doorframe. "What did you see?" She thought about lying, measured it against his eyes, and decided it wasn't worth the cost. A photograph. A woman. She looked... She stopped, steadied herself. She looked like someone I knew. The silence stretched. "Your mother," he said finally. Everything in Juliet's body went still. "How do you know what my mother looked like?" He looked at the floor, then at her. His jaw was tight. "I've been trying to figure out the same thing for 3 years. "What does that mean?" "It means..." He stopped, pushed off the doorframe. "It means there are things I'm not ready to tell you. And there are things I'm not going to apologize for not being ready to tell you." That's not good enough. I know. Mr. J1. He said it almost involuntarily. Then, like he hadn't meant to say it at all, he straightened. Go to bed, Miss Park. I'll explain what I can, when I can. He turned and walked out before she could respond. She stood in the kitchen for a long time after he left. The vegetables sat untouched on the counter. Her hands were still gripping the edge of the island. Something was very wrong. Something that went deeper than debt and power and a forced arrangement in an expensive house. She looked toward the pantry door. The woman in the photograph. Her mother's eyes in a stranger's face. His bored. His silence. His obsession with tasting her food. 3 years. She thought about what Zara had said. Be careful what you start to feel. But feelings weren't the problem right now. Right now. The problem was that Juliet Park was beginning to suspect that she hadn't ended up in this house by accident. If you've made it this far, you feel it too, don't you? That slow dread building underneath the warmth. Subscribe to Afro-Korean Stories TV if you haven't already. Share this with someone who needs a story that cuts deep. Comment below. What do you think J1 is hiding? We read every single one. Now stay with us, because the truth is about to crack open. She called her father. He answered on the first ring, which meant he'd been waiting. Juliet. Who was she, Appa? Silence. Who was who? The woman, the one who looked like Iyama. She kept her voice low. She was in her room, door closed, the house settled into its late-night quiet around her. The one connected to Seo J1. I need you to tell me. How do you know about... His voice cracked. How did you find out? Appa. She pressed the phone harder against her ear. Tell me. Another silence. Longer. She could hear him breathing, could imagine him in the restaurant, or what was left of the restaurant, the one that had been struggling for years before the debt, before all of this, sitting at the table where her mother used to sit and do the books. Your mother had a sister, he said finally. A half-sister, older, different father. They grew up together in Lagos. Juliet sat down on the edge of her bed. I never knew about her. Your mother didn't talk about her. They were close once then. Not. My sister came to Seoul. Married a Korean man. Different life. He exhaled slowly. She died, Juliet, 3 years ago. There were questions about how. Questions. She was at dinner. An important dinner. Someone was poisoned. His voice dropped to almost nothing. Seo Jae-won was the target. But the dish was misdelivered. His aide, a young woman, your mother's sister, ate it by mistake. Juliet's mouth had gone dry. The person who ordered the poisoning, she said slowly. Was it someone inside his organization? I don't know. Appa, I don't know, Juliet. I only know what your mother told me before she died. That her sister's death wasn't an accident. That there were people covering it up. He paused. Your mother started asking questions. I always thought that was part of why she got sick. The stress of it. The fear. Juliet closed her eyes. 4 years of grief. 4 years of thinking her mother had died of something medical. Something inevitable. Something without a name she could hold responsible. Does he know? She asked. Does Seo Jae-won know who I am? He's the one who found us, Juliet. He's the one who extended the credit that turned into the debt. A pause that felt like an apology. I should have told you. I know. I should have. She ended the call. She sat in the silence of the expensive room in the expensive house and breathed. He'd known who she was. He'd brought her here deliberately. He'd watched her cook and eaten her food and looked at her with those reading eyes, and he'd known, all along, that her mother's sister had died in his place, that she was carrying grief she didn't even know the full shape of. She didn't cry. She was past crying. She was somewhere colder and clearer than tears. She got up and put on her shoes. I walked out of her room, down the hall, down the stairs to the kitchen. She started to cook. Not because she'd been asked to, not for him, because cooking was the only way she knew to think, the only way her hands and her mind could work something out together. She made pepper soup, her mother's exact recipe. No adaptation, no fusion, no Korean technique. Just the recipe as Grace Park had made it, memorized in the marrow of Juliet's bones. Goat meat, uziza, scent leaf. The pepper blend her mother had ground herself and stored in small jars labeled in Yoruba. She cooked in silence. No music. The steam rose and the smell filled the kitchen, filled it completely, warm and complicated and honest. And somewhere in the middle of it, Juliet started to cry without noticing she'd started. "Miss Park." She didn't turn around. "I'm not on the clock," she said, "so you can call me Juliet." A pause. Then she heard him come into the kitchen. He'd not coming toward her, just entering. Sitting down, she thought, somewhere behind her. The sound of a stool against the floor. She wiped her face. "Keep stirring." "You know," he said. It wasn't a question. "I know." Another silence. This one was different from all the other ones. This one had weight. "Then you should leave," he said. "I'll arrange for your father's debt to be cleared. You should leave and not come back." She turned around. He was sitting on the stool at the island, on elbows on the counter, and he looked, for the first time since she'd arrived, like someone had removed something heavy from behind his eyes, like the effort of holding it all in place had finally exhausted him. "You brought me here?" she said. "Yes." "Why?" He looked at her. "Because you were the only thread I had left. Because your father knew your mother. Because your mother knew—" He stopped. "Because I needed to understand what happened. Yes, and I didn't know how to find that out without putting you in the middle of it." Without putting me in the middle of it. She let that sit in the air between them. "That's what you call this." "I know how it sounds." "And the food?" she asked. "What was that? Strategy?" Something crossed his face. "No." "Then what?" He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower. 3 years ago, after the poisoning, after I survived it, I couldn't taste anything. And everything was ash. Doctors said it was psychosomatic, trauma response, whatever they want to call it." He looked at his hands. "I stopped eating for pleasure. I stopped eating for anything except necessity. I went to the best restaurants in Seoul and sat there like a dead man." She looked at him. "And then I ate your chin-chin," he said. "Standing in your kitchen, not even thinking about it. Just picked it up and I tasted it. Actually, I tasted it. Warm and sweet and something else. Something I didn't have a word for. Grief," she said quietly. He looked up. "That's what my mother's recipes taste like," she said. "I didn't know it until I started cooking them after she died. But that's what it is. Grief that got turned into something you could eat." She crossed her arms, not defensive, holding herself. "She made everything with the same hands that were breaking. That's the flavor people can't name." He stared at her. She looked back at him. And the steam from the pepper soup rose between them, warm and steady. "You should have told me the truth from the beginning," she said. "I know. I deserve to know why my mother spent the last years of her life afraid. I know." His voice was rough. "And I'm going to find out. I've been finding out. That's what the board is. That's what the last 3 years have been." He paused. "Someone inside my organization ordered the poisoning. And they used a woman I employed, your mother's sister, as an unwilling instrument. She died because of me, because of proximity to me." He stopped. His jaw was tight. "I don't forgive myself for that. I don't expect you to, either." Juliet uncrossed her arms. I looked at the pot on the stove. I looked back at him. Who? She asked. I'm close to knowing, close enough that I need you to be careful. Because if someone in my organization suspects you're not just a chef, they'll use me, she said it flatly. Like they used her. He held her gaze. Yes. She was quiet for a moment. Then she turned back to the stove. Turn off the heat, ladled pepper soup into a bowl. She set it on the counter in front of him. He looked at it. This isn't absolution, she said. I'm not forgiving you tonight. Maybe not ever. I'm not asking for that. Good. She pulled a stool to the other side of the island, sat across from him. But I'm not leaving. Not until I know the truth. Not until I know what happened to my mother's sister and why my mother died carrying that secret alone. He looked at her for a long time. You understand what that means, he said. Staying. I understand the risk. Juliet. Eat your soup, Jaewon, she said quietly. Before it gets cold. He looked at the bowl. Something in his face shifted. Not the wall coming down this time, but something more careful, more fragile than that. Like a person learning, slowly, that they might be allowed to be warm. He picked up the spoon. Ate. His eyes closed for a moment. Just a moment. She watched his face the way her mother had taught her. Watch their eyes. And that's where the truth lives. And what she saw there, when he opened his eyes again and looked at her across the stream of her mother's recipe, was something she had not expected and could not yet name. Choi Min came to her room the next morning. She was already awake, already dressed, had been sitting with her mother's recipe book in her lap since 5 a.m., reading and not reading, thinking about everything and nothing. He knocked twice, precisely, waited. Come in, she said. He opened the door, stood in the frame. His face was, as always, unreadable. But there was something different in the way he held himself this morning, slightly more tense, slightly more deliberate. There's something you should know, he said. She closed the book. Tell me. The kitchen supply delivery yesterday morning. He paused, just half a beat. We found something in the rice, a compound, slow-acting, tasteless. She felt the bottom of her stomach drop. Then someone poisoned the pantry, she said. Someone poisoned a specific package. One you would have been likely to use. He met her eyes. Someone who knows your cooking habits, your patterns. How long have I been here? 4 weeks. So someone has been watching me that long? Yes. She stood up, set the recipe book on the bed. I walked to the window and looked out at the garden. Bare branches, pale morning light, the walls that kept the world out and whatever was inside. It was meant for him, she said. Administered through my food. Like last time. Yes. Which means someone in this house knows that I know. Or suspects it. She turned back to Choi Min. Which means I walked myself into the same position as her. Choi Min said nothing, but the fact that he said nothing confirmed it. Does Jaewon know? I'm telling him after this. She nodded, pressed her hands flat against her thighs, felt the fear run through her and felt it fully. And because running from it would make it faster, and she needed to be faster than it. Who has access to the kitchen before I arrive in the morning? She asked. Several members of household staff, and one guest who visited yesterday evening. Director Han. Choi Min's expression didn't change, but his eyes did, just slightly. A sharpening. He came to inspect the household accounts, he said carefully. He complimented my cooking, Juliet said. He was very specific about it. He asked me which ingredients I used most, seemed very interested in my routines. I see. So do I. She walked toward the door. Tell Jaewon I'll be in the kitchen. Tell him I'll make breakfast and tell him... She paused in the doorway. Tell him I didn't run. She said it without looking back. Let it land. Then she walked down to the kitchen and started to cook. She made juk, Korean rice porridge, but stirred with the low, patient movement her mother had used for ogi. On the Nigerian porridge of her childhood, the same motion, different grain, same intention. Comfort food, the kind of food that says you are safe, you are fed, you are here. She was just finishing when she heard raised voices from the hallway. Not shouting. Seo Jae-won did not shout. But there was a controlled fury in his voice that she hadn't heard before, and the other voice, Director Han, smooth and unsurprised, answering with the calm of a man who had prepared for this conversation. So she kept cooking, kept her hands moving. She heard the front door. Then silence. Then Jae-won walked into the kitchen. He had the look of a man who had just made a decision and was standing on the other side of it. His jaw was set. His hands, she noticed, were very still. He looked at her. She put a bowl of junk on the counter. "He's gone?" she asked. "For now." He sat down. I looked at the bowl. Choi Min told me you didn't run." "I told him to tell you that." "Why?" She leaned against the counter across from him. "Because I need you to know that I'm not afraid, not enough to leave." She paused. "And because someone needs to stay and finish what your aide died trying to do 3 years ago." His hands moved slightly, just his hands. "She was trying to find the same thing," Juliet said. "My mother's sister. She was trying to understand who had ordered it. And that's why she was at that dinner. Not as an employee. She was looking for evidence." He looked up. "How do you know that?" "Because she was my mother's sister. And my mother's family doesn't walk away from things they started." She held his gaze. "Neither do I." The silence between them was different from all the previous silences. This one felt like something being built rather than something being withheld. He picked up the spoon. Ate. "This tastes like—" He stopped. "It's safety," she said. He looked at her. "That's what junk is for," she said quietly. "You make it for sick people, for grieving people, for people who need something that won't hurt them." She looked at the bowl. "My mother made it for me every time I was afraid of something. She said—" She smiled, just slightly. "She said that fear can't live in a warm stomach." He looked at the bowl for a long moment, then at her. "Juliet," he said. It was the first time he'd said her name. And just her name, without Miss Park, without distance. She felt it land somewhere in her chest. "I'm going to handle Director Han," he said. "The way this kind of thing gets handled in my world. You don't need the details." "I know. But after—" He stopped, pressed his lips together, started again. "After. When this is over, you don't have to stay. I know that too. I want you to know that whatever you decide—" Jae-won. She cut him off gently. "Eat your breakfast. We can talk about it after we get there." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he ate. It happened quietly. The way things happen in that world, without announcement, without visible seams. Director Han attended a meeting. He did not leave the way he arrived. Choi Min closed the door. Jae-won washed his hands at the kitchen sink, while Juliet pretended not to notice that his hands were shaking slightly when he finally stopped. She set a cup of tea beside him without comment. And he wrapped his hands around it. "It's done," he said. "Okay," she said. She went back to the stove. He stayed at the sink. They didn't speak for several minutes, just existed in the same kitchen, the same steam, the same quiet. "Zara is coming," Juliet said finally. "My friend. I told her she could visit. Here. She won't stay long. She just wants to see with her own eyes that I'm not in a basement somewhere." He made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. Almost, though. The edge of one. She can stay as long as she needs to, he said. Juliet turned to look at him. He was still holding the tea, still standing at the sink. The control was back in place, but looser now, worn like a coat that had been through too many seasons. "You look tired," she said. "I am tired." "When was the last time you slept a full night?" He thought about it. Actually, I thought about it, which meant the answer was bad. "Before the poisoning," he said. 3 years. She turned back to the stove. "Sit down," she said. "I'm going to make you something." "I'm not hungry." "I didn't ask if you were hungry." A pause. She heard the stool scrape the floor. She made him suya, not the street food kind, not for tonight. She made it the way her mother had made it for her father on his worst days, marinated and slow-cooked, the suya spice layered in gradual heat, patient and building, finished with a squeeze of lemon and sliced onion and fresh tomato. Thought she put it in front of him and sat across from him with nothing in front of her and just stayed. He ate slowly. He didn't rush it. He ate the way someone eats when they're actually tasting something. Present. Attentive. "My father used to say," he said between bites, "that a man who can't eat can't lead. Your father sounds pragmatic." He was. A pause. "He was also the reason I was in that position in the first place. Enemies are inherited things in this world. So is grief," she said. "I inherited mine from my mother. She inherited hers from her sister. It goes back and back." "Does it end?" She looked at him. "I think it turns into something else. Eventually." She thought of the kitchen in the restaurant, the recipe book, the smell of pepper soup in a house that had almost forgotten what warmth felt like. "That I think it turns into the thing you cook when you want someone to know you love them." He had gone very still. "I don't know how to do that," he said, quietly, without self-pity, just fact. "I don't know how to do most of the things that seem easy for other people." "I know," she said. "You deserve someone who—" J1. She leaned forward slightly. "I'm not asking you to be easy. I'm not asking you to be someone other than who you are." She held his gaze. I'm asking you to try." He looked at her across the table. The steam from the food rose between them, warm and honest, the way warmth always is. He didn't say yes. He didn't say anything. But he didn't look away. And for right now, that was enough. Zara arrived on a Tuesday, in a bright orange coat that looked like a protest against every neutral surface in the mansion. She stood in the entrance hall and turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. The high ceilings, and the clean lines, the careful absence of anything unnecessary. The way the light came through the windows and landed on surfaces that had been polished to within an inch of their lives. The way everything was correct, the way nothing was warm. "Well?" she said. "Don't," Juliet said. "I didn't say anything." "You were about to say 5 things." Zara lowered her voice to a whisper, even though they were alone. "This is a Bond villain's house. It's Jewel. It's not that bad. The entrance hall is larger than my apartment." She pointed at the ceiling. Are those original cornices?" "Zara, I'm just saying this man is rich." She turned to Juliet. Really turned, looked at her, the way Zara always looked, with her whole face and all her attention pointed at you like a light. "You look different," she said. "Different how?" "Less compressed." She tilted her head. Her braids fell to one side. Like something you were holding has been put down, not all of it, but some of the heaviest pieces." Juliet looked away. "A lot has happened." "I know. You told me most of it on the phone." She paused. "Not all of it." Juliet started walking toward the kitchen. "Come on, I'll make you something." That's what you do when you don't want to talk? That's what I always do. It doesn't mean I don't want to talk. It means I need my hands busy. Your mother was the same way, Zara said, I following her. I remember. She'd start cooking and then halfway through the ugwu soup she'd just start confessing things, like the food opened her up. Juliet stopped walking for just a second. Then I kept going. Don't, she said. Don't what? Don't make me cry in the corridor of this man's house. Zara caught up to her, took her hand briefly, squeezed once, then let go. That was Zara's language. She didn't hold on. She reminded you that you were holdable. In the kitchen, then Zara sat at the island and put her chin in her hands and watched Juliet move through the space the way you watch someone in a room that has become theirs. Juliet moved through this kitchen like she had always moved through kitchens, like she owned the air in them. He was here, Zara said. He was just here, wasn't he? I can feel it. He lives here, Zara. That's not what I mean, and you know it. She watched Juliet open the refrigerator. You move differently in this kitchen than you did in the restaurant. You move like someone who has been watched appreciatively for weeks and has started cooking for that. Juliet came out of the refrigerator with eggs and palm oil and shambo peppers. That is the most dramatic thing you've ever said to me. I'm South African. We're dramatic and correct. She leaned forward. Jules, tell me what's happening. The real version. All of it. Juliet stood with the peppers in her hands. I stood there for a moment, just breathing. Then she put everything down and turned around and leaned against the counter. I think I understand him, she said, and I think he's starting to understand me. And I know what that sounds like. Given the circumstances, given how I got here. It sounds complicated. It is complicated. But, Juliet looked at her hands. But his hands were shaking when he came into the kitchen last night, and he let me see it, and he didn't try to hide it. She looked up. A man like that, in his position, with what he controls, with how he moves through the world, he doesn't show you his shaking hands unless something has changed in him, unless you've changed something in him. Or unless you're the mark and he's very good at his job, Zara said, not cruelly, carefully. Juliet met her eyes. I've thought about that. And I've watched his face for 6 weeks over food that carries my dead mother's soul in it. I know what someone looks like when they're performing. I know what they look like when they're not. She picked up the peppers again, started slicing. He's not performing. Zara was quiet for a long moment, the kitchen filled with the smell of shambo hitting hot oil. What happened to your mother's sister? She said carefully. See, has it been resolved? Yes. And you trust that? I trust him. She said it simply, not blindly. She could hear the difference in her own voice. Not the voice of someone who had decided to believe regardless of evidence. The voice of someone who had looked at all of it. The board, the photographs, the shaking hands, the crack in the wall over a bowl of egusi, and came to a considered conclusion. Not because he's perfect, not because he's safe, but because I've been watching his face for 6 weeks and I know what honesty looks like. I know what it looks like when it's new and costs something. Zara exhaled, long and slow. Your mother would have something to say about this. My mother would have made him pepper soup and asked him 300 questions about his childhood and then told me he had good eyes. Zara laughed, short and real and slightly watery. She would have. She absolutely would have. She pressed her lips together. She had good instincts, your mother. The best, Juliet said quietly. Then trust yours. Zara looked at her, steady, clear. You're her daughter. You cook with her hands. You watch with her eyes. She paused. Trust what you see. Juliet nodded, turned back to the stove. They were quiet for a while, just the two of them in the warm kitchen. and the smell of food filling the space between them the way it always had, in university dorms and tiny flats and Juliet's mother's kitchen in Lagos, where the three of them had sat until midnight eating things Grace Park made with too much love to fit in any normal-sized portion. "What are you making?" Zara asked finally. "Puff puff," Juliet said. "My mother's recipe. Sweet and soft and too warm for its own good." She glanced back. "Just like some people I know." Zara pointed at her. That was about me. That was completely about you." It was a Sunday evening when she made the final meal, not because anyone had asked her to, not because it was in any arrangement or agreement, because the week had ended and the sky over Seoul was doing something remarkable with the clouds, turning them pink and gold over the Han River. And she felt like the moment needed marking. She made her mother's pepper soup, not adapted, not fused, not improved, the exact recipe, and I made exactly as Grace Park had written it in round handwriting in the margins of a book that Juliet carried everywhere. She made it slowly. Let every step breathe. When it was done, she carried it to the dining room. Not the kitchen island this time. The actual dining room, the one that probably hadn't seen a full table setting since whoever last lived here with warmth. And she set 2 bowls. She went to find him. He was in his study, working or trying to. And he looked up when she appeared in the doorway. "Come eat," she said. He looked at the hour. "It's late." "That's fine." He looked at her face. Whatever he saw there made him close the folder. He followed her to the dining room. He sat. I looked at the bowl. "What is this?" he asked. "My mother's recipe." She sat across from him. She only made it for people worth feeding. He looked up at her. She held his gaze. And the steam rose between them, warm and honest, and carrying 4 years of grief and 6 weeks of something she was still learning the name of. He looked back at the bowl, picked up the spoon. He tasted it. She watched his face. Watched the way the control dissolved. Not slammed open, not dramatic, just dissolved. Slowly, like something cold put into warm water. His eyes were bright. "This is—" He stopped, started again. His voice was rougher than usual. "Child, this is— I know," she said quietly. He looked at her, really looked at her. And she saw in his face everything he didn't have the words for yet. The 3 years of ash and silence and closed-off rooms. The slow, impossible return of something he'd given up on, the terror and the relief of being seen. "Thank you," he said. 2 words, just 2. But they came from somewhere real. Somewhere past the control and the coldness and the armored exterior. And they landed with the weight of everything behind them. She nodded. Picked up her own spoon. They ate together. In the warm quiet of the room, the steam rising between them like something alive, like something that had decided, on its own, to stay. Outside, Seoul moved and breathed and went about its complicated business. The Han River caught the city lights the way it always did, indifferent and beautiful. Somewhere in Itaewon, a restaurant stood empty. Damaged, but not destroyed, its pipes and foundations intact, waiting for someone to bring it back. Park Sung-jin had plans for it. New plans. Better plans than the ones that had run it into the ground. He'd told Juliet on the phone. She'd listened and said nothing for a moment, and then, "I'll send you Iyama's full recipe collection." The ones she never put on the menu. He had cried. She had let him. Choi Min, somewhere in the house, reviewed a stack of documents with the focused attention of a man who treated loyalty like a craft. He had served Seo Jae-won since they were both too young for the world they'd been born into. He had watched his employer eat 3 years of ash-tasting meals and not say a word about it to anyone. He had watched something change in the last 6 weeks. He had no language for warmth, particularly, but he recognized it when it appeared. He noted it. He protected it, the way he protected everything that mattered. Zara was on a flight back to Johannesburg, an orange coat folded on her lap, smiling to herself at something she was typing on her phone. She had taken approximately 40 photographs of the kitchen. She had told Juliet before she left, "You're going to be okay, you know. Not because of him, because of you. But him too, maybe. Eventually." Juliet had hugged her for a long time, and in the dining room, warm and quiet, 2 bowls of pepper soup between them, Seo Jae-won and Juliet Park sat across from each other and said nothing, because some things don't need to be said. Some things are already said. They are said in the way a meal is made, with time and patience and the willingness to stay at the stove even when it's hard, even when it costs something, even when the person you're cooking for doesn't yet know how to say thank you. They learn. They always learn. Grace Park had told her daughter that once, sitting in a kitchen that smelled like palm oil and sesame and something ineffably home. Her hands are busy, her voice is easy, her eyes on her daughter's face. People learn, Ada. Give them warm food and time. That's usually enough. Juliet looked at the man across the table, thought about her mother. Thought about grief turned into flavor. Thought about all the miles between Lagos and Seoul and all the years between then and now. Then she picked up her spoon, and she ate. You stayed, all the way to the end. And if this story moved something in you, if Juliet's grief felt familiar, if Jae-won's silence made sense, if Grace Park's voice came through in the food, then you know this channel is something different. The Afro-Korean Stories TV is built for people who feel deeply and want stories that feel back. Subscribe. Like this video so more people can find us. Share it with someone who needs a story tonight, and leave a comment below. Tell us what you'll carry from this one. We read everything. The next story is already waiting. We'll see you there.